Happy Halloween! And welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
Hey, folks.
We're not going to record the whole time like this, though, I don't think. Yeah, so we can... Hold on.
Oh, what? You're ruining it.
Sorry.
Ruining it.
Oh, my God. All right, guys, welcome to our Halloween episode of Deep Dive Film School. Sorry about that. I'm Adam Sherlock.
Oh, I'm Adam Palcher.
Yeah, and so this week we are starting a new festival, and we thought
John Carpenter.
And since it's also our Halloween episode, we thought it would be best to start with the 1994 film In the Mouth of
Classic in cinema with American Beauty, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and In the Mouth of Madness.
One of the classics. This is part of, we're going to be doing 4 different Carpenter films. Mm-hmm. We're doing Big Trouble in Little China, Starman, In the Mouth of Madness, and The Prince of Darkness. And Prince of Darkness is the other one that is part of the Apocalypse trilogy.
Okay.
But yeah, so why are we doing John Carpenter as our next festival?
I mean, that's really a question I should be asking you.
Oh, jeez.
This is going great.
That's a question you should be asking me?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I love Carpenter, don't get me wrong. The Thing is one of the all-time great movies, I think. It's up
easily.
there, right? It's top 20.
Yeah, and we've actually, and that is part 1 of the Apocalypse trilogy.
Yes.
And we reviewed that on our old show years and years and years ago.
And I think he's also, for his time at least, was a master of practical effects and great storytelling. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of things about him that would kind of show our personality and just kind of us having the jokey festival every once in a while too.
Well, and I think the other thing that I realized quite a bit when watching In the Mouth of Madness is that it's really interesting that somebody like Carpenter, who made such a huge important sort of dent in the horror movie world with his original Halloween film.
Yes.
You think about that and you go, okay, and he totally knew how to do this, to basically invent the slasher film, right? And so you look at that and you go, wow, that's so tense in all these different ways. And then you think about the different movies that he did after that, whether you're talking about something super weird like Big Trouble in Little China, or even something like The Thing, or like The Fog, or a movie like In the Mouth of Madness. You're like, oh, okay, like you like things that are scary within like a whole different range. Right. And I think that that's really interesting to think like, oh, he did so much with the original Halloween film really
he
invented
created
that.
So many tropes with just that movie alone.
Exactly.
Not
let
counting
alone
all the other stuff that he's done.
Exactly. Now this again, I think is kind of an outlier. It's a different film.
Yeah, it is.
Than a lot of.
So why did you pick this one for the Halloween episode?
I feel like it doesn't get talked about
Sherlock
enough.
likes Halloween.
Obviously the giant heads.
I love Halloween.
The giant heads we had on at the beginning are not part of a Halloween costume. They're actually for.
Yes, but he made them.
I did make them. I made those. They're for my work. I work with kids. But anyway, I think In the Mouth of Madness in particular is one movie that doesn't get talked about a lot. I think that it's one of the best films that exists out there that's sort of about the Lovecraft mythos. I think that I love H.P. Lovecraft. Obviously, he wrote all these incredible weird stories about the Cthulhu mythology. Yes, it needs to be acknowledged that he was a rampant racist. He did have a cat that was named N-Word Man. And some people try to be apologists and be like, well, it was a different era, and it's like, yeah, but it's also pretty apparent. And I actually think that his xenophobia actually is part of what makes his stories so interesting, because he was so scared of people from different cultures and different religions and all these different things. And I think that's where a lot of the heart of the Cthulhu mythos comes from. So it's like, okay, abhorrent man, amazing mythology that he created, and what people have done.
Was a different time.
Yes, but still, I just think that we needed a caveat for that before moving on, because I am going to do a lot of sort of Lovecraft love in this episode, because In the Mouth of Madness is so chock full of both lore that originated from. I mean, really, the Sutter Kane character is a stand-in for some weird amalgam of Stephen King. And H.P. Lovecraft. And so I'll be doing a little bit of a H.P. Lovecraft reference game as we go through this episode. In fact, I'll do
Sherlock, maybe.
There we go. Moment. Yes, the Dr. Sherlock moment. We'll start with number one right out of the gates.
He has a master's in bullshit.
It's very true. We'll start with number one, which number one is In the Mouth of Madness, is a play off of At the Mountains of Madness, a very early H.P. Lovecraft story. Give us a little bit of a synopsis about In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I was really happy that we chose this movie. I thought it was a super fun movie to watch. You know, he's so good at the campy, and that's generally not my thing, but for some reason I always really have fun watching his movies.
And him and Sam Neill together.
Yeah, and then we got a young Sam Neill here.
Honestly, batting for the fences, man.
Yeah, we'll get to a few of the other characters later, but like essentially, you know, he gets dragged into this cuckoo's nest type of hospital that you know, and he's in a straitjacket.
Yeah,
and we open up to this heavy metal like 90s rock song that he wrote.
Yes,
John Carpenter.
Yes, and is playing.
And it's basically Metallica.
He's playing that live now when he does his live concerts.
What?
Yeah,
really?
It's in the repertoire.
How old is John Carpenter right now?
I mean, I don't know.
He's got to be in his 70s.
Yeah, probably late 70s. Still smoking
still
like
rocking,
a chimney.
Still rocking.
Still rocking and rolling.
You know, and so we get this, and you know, he's in this crazy house, and he, you know, they start playing the Carpenters, which was a great joke, and
total breaking of the fourth wall, right?
Yeah,
he's like, no, not the Carpenters too, and it's like, oh, okay, I get what
absolutely.
You're doing.
No, and you know, so this great nut house, right, and they bring in the investigator to help him get out of there, and all he's asked for was a black piece of chalk, or no, it was a crayon.
It's a crayon, and he somehow managed to decorate his entire room and himself. And the crayon was still kicking.
Yeah. No,
can we mention David Warner as?
Oh yes, the great '80s, '90s that guy, right? He was like
Time Bandit.
Bandits. Wasn't he the bad guy in Strange Brew?
Or no, Max von Sydow was the bad guy in Strange Brew.
But I still think he might have been in
The Omen.
Oh, that's the other one.
Yeah, he's the reporter in The Omen.
He's a horror movie that guy.
Yes, very much so.
He's no Tom Noonan, but he's close.
But he's a close second. But again, I love this early moment where talk about what a great loaded bit of foreshadowing to do that when David Warner shows up and the lead psychiatrist at the Nut House goes, it must be getting pretty bad out there for them to send you guys in. Yeah. And you go, okay, we never find out who you guys are.
He purposely does not talk about the outside world.
Yes. So and not only do we know like something bad is happening out there, A, and then B, is he with the CIA or something?
Because I haven't seen this movie before.
Stuff. That's great. This is your first time.
Yeah. No. So first time seeing it. I think you know, it's probably one of those late night HBO movies.
There's maybe sections that you're like,
I wasn't super. Yeah, like I've seen, but I was probably maybe waiting for boobs, probably more likely. And so,
as we all did at that age.
Exactly. Yeah. In 1994.
It's what one does.
Anyways, I don't know what your 1994 was like.
I was a little bit older than you, so. I had a girlfriend.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that. Past the scene him on TV.
Anyway.
Anyway, so I haven't actually had time to like fully embrace this movie, just because the horror campy stuff was never super my thing that I was seeking out like you.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun knowing John Carpenter and seeing his films since then, and going to, just having a film history of his work, and then having this kind of be the one-off thing that I haven't seen. And it's not stuff I revisit a lot too. Like you'll watch this 5 times a year or something.
Totally.
And so it's kind of fun revisiting because he is so good at that camp.
I think one of the things that's really interesting is that you look at his early movies, and it's very much, I think, what happens to any artist, which is when you're younger, you take yourself way too seriously, and you're like, I have this message and I've got to get it out there. And as you start to get older, you're like, you know what? I'm going to have fun. Like once you've kind of made a name for yourself. And the early films, again, that are amazing, things like Halloween or The Thing or these early films.
I admire those directors that can do that.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
But you think by the time this dude got to the mid 80s with like Big Trouble in Little China, he's like, you know what?
Fuck it.
Let's just have fun,
go.
you know? And so by the time 94 rolls around, he's just like, yeah, I want to do this Cthulhu mythos story, and I want it to be crazy, and I want it to really make you feel like you're watching something insane by the last frame. And by that point, like, you kind of are like, whoa, man, this thing is going all over the place and doing some really weird stuff.
So Ren coming in and him in the crazy jacket and everything, that's just bookends to the movie, right?
Yes.
We flash back to when Sutter Kane has disappeared. And, we get this history. He's basically, like you said, a Stephen King. They compare him to Stephen King in this movie, actually.
He outsells King.
And so he basically is God, at least by the end of the movie.
Yes.
And then we get Sam Neill here, who's an insurance adjuster, and he's the best damn insurance adjuster this borough of New York.
Yeah, they're trying to give him jobs left and right.
Exactly. So he's good at his job, right? So you get that, which I always love watching someone who's good at their job, right?
Yeah.
And obviously any kind of investigated
and there's a total noir thing with the smoking the cigarette and the smoke drafting up, around his eyes.
Oh, he's a smoker.
Yeah. Yeah. But one of the interesting things here too is that while we're establishing all this, we're also peppering in really gently in the background this idea that something is driving all these people crazy, right?
No, it's his book. Like,
right.
People rioted at this bookstore because of the new. They didn't pre-order enough books, and people were like smashing windows.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, but then you have Sam Neill, in a diner, and he is, he's just being that good insurance adjuster I was just talking about.
Best in the damn business.
Yeah, he's just being that guy. And, this crazy person that we see come out of the store across the street, it's this actually great frame of the two shot of them talking and just
it's
joking.
Such a great shot.
Joking around about something or talking about a job that's coming up. And you see this crazy person just kind of come across the street and come up to the window.
Yes.
And the guy smashes the window and says, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" And just has this whole breakdown, and he gets to experience firsthand one of these crazy people. One of the great moments in this of John Carpenter here is that this person, if you focus on it, they have the two eyes.
It's so weird.
It's a wonderful little touch that stuck with me through the rest of the movie because every one of those people had two eyes.
Yes.
Two eyes with, and I say two eyes, that
they're
sounds
like
crazy, but
connected
two eyes
to
and one eye.
Yeah, two pupils in one eye that are connected.
Yeah.
And again, which also leads to this sort of like weird otherworldly look, like that somehow reading this thing is transforming people. That gets me, everybody, to number 2 of the Lovecraft reference thing here, which is reading a thing that drives people insane. Now, not only does that exist within...
Is it always reading? They can watch it, right? Like The Ring or something like that.
Right. Now, but specifically for Lovecraft, it is either looking at the statue in Call of Cthulhu and also the readings of Hastur. Now, here's where I'm going to get just a little extra nerdy for just a second. To do a deeper dive here, the idea of this reading of some kind of a tome that drives people insane became a huge part of Lovecraft, but pre-Lovecraft was a guy named Robert W. Chambers, who wrote a series of stories called The King in Yellow, which is basically a series of short stories about this cursed play called The Yellow Sign that had a character in it called The King in Yellow. And it basically was this, like, the King in Yellow is like some kind of prophetic demon or monster from another world. And then if anybody reads this play, it's so abhorrent that people lose their mind and start killing each other and become evil. The entire concept of The King in Yellow was later used for the first season of True Detective.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So every time that they're talking about the Carcosa and all of that is from Robert Chambers' King in Yellow.
Oh, wow.
So all the references for that. So again,
It's a great season.
yeah, definitely. Well, and like all the weird like antler heads and like all the weird drawings and all that stuff, that's all Robert Chambers. And Robert Chambers was a huge influence on Lovecraft, who later took a lot of that mythos and added it into his whole story. So the idea that somebody would be writing these books that are then getting mass publication out there that are doing the same thing and like opening these portals for these people, again, is this very, very old sort of concept.
All right, number 2.
Number 2.
Something I was very excited about in this movie was when Charlton Heston showed up.
Damn right, Mr. Omega Man himself.
That's right. I'm like, bring on the cheese.
You damn dirty apes.
That's right.
Man does hold a presence in a room.
He
like,
does.
I mean, even if he's sitting behind
I
a desk.
also know the kinds of movies that he normally did and what
That's
he's
true.
famous for, and like it's actually kind of refreshing to have this whole movie not be about him and he's just like this side character.
Yeah, I'm sure he's like, oh,
am I doing
John,
here?
when are we doing the rest of my scenes?
Oh, we did him yesterday, Charles.
they're all
You don't
done.
remember? Yeah, that's right.
So I'm getting top billing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure
Come
thing.
to the premiere. We'll see.
So yeah, so he shows up and he is the publisher for the books by Sutter Kane.
Oh, yeah, and they're selling fucking T-shirts and coffee mugs and toilet paper and, Spaceballs, the movie, everything. They're marketing the shit out of every single book because he outsells Stephen King.
That's right.
He's sold more than the Bible, is what they say. And so he has to be God.
So one more really quick.
Number 3.
Well, three through 7 are the names of the other books that he's written.
Oh,
Those
okay.
books include Whispers in the Dark, Whisper in Darkness, The Thing in the Basement, The Thing on the Doorstep, Haunter Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark, or The Shadow Out of Time, and then finally The Hobbs End Horror, The Dunwich Horror. So you can see why I made it a point of mentioning this stuff, because it wears it loudly.
Wow,
this
yeah.
isn't like, oh, they might be kind of influenced. Everything down to the actual monsters we see on the cover of the books. You're like, yeah, Sutter Kane's supposed to be Lovecraft.
Yeah, but so people start reading, or Sam Neill starts reading books and really just starts getting drawn in, right? And he's kind of starts going a little crazy, but not quite. And
He's having these weird dreams about the cop in the
that beats up the person in the alley. Past the poster of the newest book.
we get a double dream fake out.
Yes.
Wake up and then he's on the couch and then there's the monster cop again.
Yeah.
Double freak out.
I wrote that down. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
it got me too.
Yeah, it
You're
did.
like, oh shit.
It's a good one. I mean, there's reasons they do. But everyone in these dreams, he sees you. Everyone who's talking to him after he starts reading them, a kid that works at the bookstore, he sees you, and all these people.
Yeah.
That ends up being a thing, and you're just like, ooh, it's super creepy. I don't know, but it was just fascinating.
Well, and it's interesting that we have Sutter Kane as a character that's built up so big before we ever meet the guy.
Yeah, I love that.
So much time goes by that by the time we see him, and I don't really know who that actor is. I've never really seen him in anything else that plays Sutter Kane.
Yeah, I know. I actually looked on IMDb and I was like, no, I've never heard of that.
He's a weird looking guy.
Yeah.
And there's something about
he has a Rutger Hauer like feel to him. Like he's like a poor man's Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, and like
That's not bad, though. I'd live that life.
He's from yeah, sure. He's not American or English though, and so his accent's just weird enough that it lends to the unease and alienness of sort of his look and the sound of his voice, and it really helps kind of nail who this character is. Once you finally see him, you're like, "Buh, that's him." Like, I don't know. It's a great effect that they wait so long. you
Yeah,
know?
there was more drama in this than I was expecting, at least in the probably first hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't get quite to the horror. You know, obviously a lot of his movies, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the practical effects here were not Rob Bottin.
They were not.
Which he's famously, you know, made him famous.
It was K&B. K&B has done a lot of. I think they've done a lot of later John Carpenter stuff. But yeah, it wasn't Bottin. Obviously, I think the biggest influence we see here is when the innkeeper, or no, sorry, not the innkeeper. They're at the inn, but it's Styles' character who's transforming, and we see those ropey tendrils from underneath the door frame, and I was like, oh, that looks like some Bottin right there. It's
Yeah,
very
there's
much like
definitely
The Thing.
elements where I recognize. I'm like, well, that's still John Carpenter, but that's not quite the same. But it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Like, he has a certain style that he's going for with these practical effects. But you know, I don't know. There was more drama than I expected, and you know, Styles is probably someone we should talk about because she's in the rest of the movie with him. And this is
who works also.
Julie Carmen, who works with Charlton Heston, and he basically sends her out to go find Sutter Kane and see if they can close this case because they're waiting for the end of the book.
Right,
They're
right.
waiting for it.
And it turns out that there was a publicity stunt, but then Sutter Kane actually disappeared, and this supposed town that he went to doesn't actually exist. Hobbs End, which Hobbs End actually brings me to yet another. This is number 5, I believe.
4.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
No, 4 or 5. Anyway, no. Whoever's keeping track. So this one's actually really interesting because first of all, the H.P. Lovecraft reference is from Shadow over Innsmouth, which is a small New England town. Again, very much like Hobbs End. That's one of the classic cliche small town with a secret.
But we also got Skeptical Dad in here with Sam Neill. I was like, oh, that would never happen to me.
That's another perfect cliche, the Skeptical Dad.
I love these tropes.
Well, and he's hitting his hand on the table saying, this is reality, right? These things don't happen in reality. And I love that because I think that that's actually a more modern version of characters that would normally end up in a Lovecraft story, where they're more akin to, they'll still argue against it, but they don't treat it as flippantly as our Sam Neill character does. And here's the second secret to Hobbs End.
Okay.
In the old Roy Baker Hammer film Quartermass and the Pit, while they're building out part of a new subway station in the London Underground, they do some excavating and they come across a body that's thousands and thousands of years old, but not human, from another planet. And anybody who gets near the body makes the people go crazy. Their primal instincts come out and they start killing each other. So anybody that's exposed to this corpse in the ground.
Yes.
The name of that subway station, Hobbs End.
Ah, okay.
So there you go. There's another one.
Yeah, you kind of talked about one reference to this, but the deja vu in this movie, it's all over the place, right?
Oh, totally.
You see it with the jump scare and him dreaming about the cop, but then
there's like flashes of axes coming down and blood spurting.
Yeah.
And
You
multiple
get this-
people
you get
seem to
this,
be having that.
Yeah, this exposition basically for the rest of the movie, like kind of thrown at you really quickly, so you don't know everything that's going on or
Yes.
the context of it.
Well, and some of it is like, we see Sutter Kane at one point, and he does this to multiple characters, where he's literally grabbing people by the
kid in the
head
bike.
and putting their head to the book, and then they're getting these flashes
that's-
of these images, right?
Yeah,
and so
for
it's
sure.
like that what you're talking about,
For
like
sure.
like
I'm even
reoccurring.
talking about like the kid riding the bike in the road, and
can we
how
talk-
that keeps changing.
Can we
to,
talk
like,
about the kid on
what
the
looks
bike?
like an old woman. That's creepy.
That is one of the all-timer, like, I saw it back in 94, and sometimes if I'll be on a road trip or something and driving at night, I'll think about that scene, and
no.
it will scare me so much.
It's creepy.
The other part that really scares me from that same sequence is when the lines in the road go boom, and they're gone, and she looks out, and for a second there's thunder, and they're up in the sky somehow.
Woo!
It scares me
Yeah.
in a way I don't even understand. Right? It is so terrifying to me.
Very, very, very well done. But then we get to this inn. They take this long road trip, and Happy Gilmore's grandma is there.
I know. I was gonna say she totally is. It is Happy Gilmore's grandma.
And then, once we're at Hobbs End, we have Happy Gilmore's grandma And
Boy, she can be spooky.
yeah, she has a moment. She definitely has
The big eyes and
yeah. I mean, she's still Happy Gilmore's grandma.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know, we're in this town that doesn't really exist, but they find it anyway, and they go to this inn, and the painting from Ghostbusters 2 is there.
He totally
And-
is.
and-
Vigo the Carpathian.
And they have this crazy church where we end up finding that's where Sutter Kane's at, and
Yeah.
that's kind of his realm.
Johnny boy. Johnny boy. That's what he says, and you're like, what is happening right now? That is the weirdest moment. Like I couldn't.
It's weird.
It's funny.
You're like, why even have that in the movie?
Yeah,
almost?
it doesn't make any sense, and it's like, okay, now there's a bunch of guys, but everything before that is like the tension's ramping up, and you're like, ooh, it's this creepy town. And there's like maybe there's creepy kids with gooey faces, but maybe there's not. And then all of a sudden there's this
There's
big
definitely creepy
crazy
kids following her or her.
but then
person
he
or
can't
something,
see
but,
them,
yeah.
and then they see the
But that never
church.
really comes back around. These kids reading the book, what, or did he kill them in their book? Like,
I don't know that anyone in that town read the book. I think that
I
it's
mean,
like
that's true. The town is the book, right?
yeah, the
Like,
town is the
yeah,
book, so
yeah.
they're infected from the get go. But the thing that it's like it's kind of like the spell is broken once all those Dobermans come out and they're barking and Vigo the Carpathian's there and he's going Johnny boy, Johnny boy, like all that stuff. I'm like, damn man, like it's like it kind of broke the spell a little bit for me because everything before that of just the weird town and Happy Gilmore's grandma, and then the crazy
She
church.
doesn't have a name.
The church out there with the weird spires, it's
amazing.
really unsettling stuff.
Yeah.
And then that kind of breaks the spell where I'm like, oh, there's regular people in this town who have guns and are gonna kill Sutter Kane. And I was like, and it pulls it back and we get into some more really great stuff again. But there's a couple of weird choices like that where I'm like,
Mommy's Day.
it's so weird. It's so weird.
It is weird.
Yeah, I don't understand what
They
that
had a Children of the Corn moment for sure.
They definitely did. They definitely did. And to the girl, it's just teeth on the front. They're just Mommy's Day.
Yeah, it's a bad hair lip.
But I do think that, like, overall,
I do have to say the guy who plays Kane does look like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers' dad, maybe. Like that's pretty close.
that's who he is. Didn't you know that?
Oh, or
He's-
is it Flea?
No, it's Flea's dad.
Oh, okay.
They were like, John Carpenter was hanging out at band practice with Flea. He was like playing the
It's like,
keyboard.
hey,
and
is
he
your
was like,
dad available for
yeah.
a
He's
major
like, you know,
role?
my dad's available if you want him. Really? Oh, man.
What
yeah.
else has he done?
Yeah, nothing really. It's
Yeah.
just my dad.
He just looks like me.
Yeah. He's retired.
This is something I kind of keep poking at, but this whole idea of Sutter Kane has sold this many books, and he sees himself now as a god, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
Because he can get into people's minds that read his books, and his books are changing reality. At least we think so.
I mean, it's a fun conversation
Absolutely,
actually
it's a
because
great plot for a movie.
when Kane brings it up, it's this great moment where they're actually, as things get more dire, you see the character of Trent, you see Sam Neill's character have lots of like either getting hit over the head and passing out or having like a freak out and passing out. Like he has a series of like, and then wakes up someplace else.
Yeah.
And one of the early ones of this, he wakes up and he's in the confessional booth inside the church.
So good.
And Sutter Kane's on the other side. And they have this really interesting, and this is
Claustrophobic too.
and this is like prime John Carpenter. Like put this shit in a bottle and let it age, because this is like top of the line stuff where they have this conversation about theology, right?
Yeah.
And that Sutter Kane's basically saying, look, if people start to believe the fiction that's in my book, what makes that any different than religion? And if people believe it, doesn't that mean that I am a god? Because now I have the capability to alter reality? And it's such a fun moment because, and Styles talks about this earlier when they're in the car ride, this idea of sanity is only what one larger group of people have deemed to be reality.
What would you say that says about pop culture and just American obsession?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It says a ton.
Yeah, that if, and we see it right now, like if you had a person from 50 years ago that you could transport to today, I think the fact that people have their devices out and are constantly interacting with them would probably scare the shit out of somebody from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Because they would be like, oh my God, it is 1984. This is George Orwell, right?
Sure.
Like, And instead, like,
parts
we
of it, absolutely.
gradually get used to a thing, and that's the new normal.
Yep.
And so I do love that, just as a philosophical thing. Again,
For sure.
like you're saying, in this movie that, like, for all intent and purpose, you're like, it's a kind of cornball rad horror movie that's got some creepy stuff in it, but it takes time
Yeah.
in these moments to explore these ideas that I think that Carpenter really wanted to talk about. Quick sidecar, another one to tick onto the list for the Lovecraft reference.
Let's hear it. Number 5.
It's still number 5. Happy Gilmore's grandma, Miss Pickman, from the short story Pickman's Model.
So we get to a point here where basically they meet finally, right? And it starts in the confessional, and he basically finishes his manuscript and wants him to take it back to the world.
Yeah.
And so we get this whole journey of him trying to get it back
Before
and
we do
destroy
that, let's talk about this last scene inside of the church. It is so weird and awesome.
Oh, where
Where
it like opens up.
Sutter
and,
Kane
like,
grabs a hold of himself and
this is
rips.
This is the one special effect. I'm like, stick to practical effects, John,
I
because
know.
this was the one computer effect, and you could see it just wasn't done very well.
It wasn't done very well, but the idea behind it
Sure.
is so cool because he rips himself open, and there's pages to the manuscript that are the back of
All
him
the monsters
from the
come out.
other reality. And this is the last reference. This is the last of the Lovecraft references. But when she takes the manuscript and is literally reading word for word what he's doing in the moment, this is a fun callback. You know, you said Spaceballs, the breakfast cereal or whatever. It's very Spaceball.
Sutter Kane, the breakfast cereal.
It's very Spaceballs-esque, though. You think about, like, when they're watching back the actual film itself, and they're like, is this happening now? Is this the now? And she's literally reading what he's doing in the moment because they're all characters in his book now. When he looks over the edge and she starts talking about those writhing creatures and the guttural pitch blackness, and she's reading all of that is verbatim lines from different Lovecraft short stories. Those are all specific lines of text from his books, which I loved. And it was like being able to be like, oh my God, like that's from Rats in the Walls. And that's from, and you can kind of like tell those different ones, but it's like, it's just such an amazing moment. They're like shrieking of these monsters as they come out. Now, again, I goddamn wish they would have gotten Rob Bottin for when these monsters, this wall of monsters is crawling behind them. It doesn't look that good. It reminds me of the monster that's chasing around the girl at the end of the very first Hellraiser. Like, it's pretty corny. And if it would have been something like The Thing, this big starfish monster thing, it would have been perfect. But instead it just was like, but that whole thing of the ripping apart the pages and everything, like, I can forgive how crappy it looks. Because the idea behind it is so weird and cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we get back to this part where he is trying to get the manuscript back, right? And, he keeps trying to destroy it, and it keeps popping up, and he doesn't realize how deep into it he is.
Really freaks out of that poor kid that's working at the motel. Who dropped this off? He's like, I don't know. I just work here.
Yeah,
like,
he definitely
take it
gets
easy,
pissed off
dude.
at that. Also, hey, maybe stop going down dark basements or shit like that.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, that looks. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Don't go there.
That's probably
But,
not going to help you out.
Yeah, but we have to move the story along.
One of my favorite scenes is when he's on the bus.
Oh yes.
My favorite color is blue.
Yes.
Which, by the way, fun little Easter egg. Every close-up of every single actor that you see in this entire movie from the beginning has blue contacts in. And it shows that Sutter Kane has power from the very beginning.
Wow.
So that we are all actually living inside of a Sutter Kane book. But my favorite color is blue. And then he wakes up and everything on the bus is blue.
Yes.
It's a brilliant, very funny moment. It's very funny. And Sam Neill, again, he's just like, he's working his ass off in this movie. And he's like, he's being funny, but he's also being like, his character is taking it all very seriously.
Once he's taking this back and the outside world is tearing apart, right? We kind of jump back to the bookend, right?
Yes.
Around this point. And Ren is there and he kind of explains this and references back to what he's talking about. And we,
he's like, I'm safer in here. I don't want to go out.
Yeah.
I'm fine here.
It's not good.
No.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense why you have this Terry Gilliam kind of Kubrick opening to this movie almost, where you're getting dragged down to this crazy nut house and we don't know why.
Yeah,
And
totally.
you're just like, oh, that's why this place is full.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that as far as the direction goes, the shots of some of these things, like the church and like that asylum at the beginning, are just gorgeous. Apparently, the asylum is actually a water filtration plant in Canada, and that's the exterior and the interior of it. It's just those feel very different for Carpenter in terms of sort of those long shots. Again, like you're saying, very Terry Gilliam-esque, very weird, sort of these long expanses. What about this last scene where he goes to the movie theater?
It's the best ending this movie could ever have.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think we talked about it last episode, but Purple Rose of Cairo a little bit. Right?
Yeah, totally. And you're just like you're in a different reality. Somebody did mention online, and I like this. Somebody on Reddit said, if what would have just been the cherry on top is if when he saw the movie, instead of it being John Trent starring in Mouth of Madness, is if it would have actually said Sam Neill.
Oh, yes.
Because it does break the other fourth wall. It says directed by John Carpenter.
Yeah, that's right.
So it would have been just even funnier if it said Sam Neill.
Yeah, basically he goes to see the movie we're watching and just laughs his ass off.
Because it super cuts between like, this is not reality, this is reality, this is not reality, sorry about the balls. Like it super cuts between all the most like insane things that he does in the movie, and he's laughing his ass off.
Did they make a sequel to this?
No.
They easily could have.
I know. Yeah. They easily could have.
I'm surprised they didn't, actually.
I just think it's a very... Okay, well, let me ask you this. Like, obviously, I've been gushing over it. I love all the references to it.
Those all went over my head.
Sure, but I think that it's able to be both. I think that for somebody who doesn't know any of that, you can be like, boy, that was a really unique and weird movie. And for those of us who really love the Lovecraft lore... It's a love letter to us, right? Because you're just like, oh my god, there's so many of them. Like it never stops.
Sure.
And obviously he did his research on that and really took a lot of care.
Ready Player One. And you're like, oh my god, yeah, that's that. And
that's yeah, and there's that one, and there's that one. Yeah. Seeing it for the first time, what did like? How do you feel about the movie?
I loved it. It was awesome.
It's fun, right?
It was a fun time. It was it's a silly, campy movie, but like, in a fun way, why wouldn't I watch that movie again?
Totally, it's super entertaining.
Yeah. So no, I had
with
a ton of fun.
handful of like straight up scary parts.
Yeah, we get a full on. We totally skipped over this, but the Exorcist walking lady.
Oh my god!
The car,
yeah.
Like a spider,
and
basically.
Flips over. Apparently, they had a contortionist.
I can see how they did it.
Yeah, they had a contortionist that was able to do both. Because at first you're like. And at first you go, oh yeah, like they have a prosthetic head and it's glued on upside down. But then when she flips over, you're like, wait, what? The other moment in this that I don't know why it's so scary to me, but it just unsettles me to no end is at the very beginning when things start going crazy outside right after he's been thrown into a cell and it gets louder and louder and louder and then goes dead silent. And then that skinny, pale little arm goes up and goes blink, blink, blink.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why, but that is
That's like the first scare in the movie.
Yeah, that blink, blink, blink thing. Again, that's one of the late night. Adam's going to bed, turning off all the lights in the house, and I'm like, what if that hand came up over to the window and
we got too many windows.
Yeah, it's kind of. And it's like I love that about it. That even with a lot of the kind of cornier stuff or funnier stuff, and just straight up sort of almost slapstick level gore things, there are these moments like that where I'm like. That's an amazing image. That's a very powerful
There's
image.
Lots of elements about this movie that are cheesy, but lots of them that are easy to love.
Yeah.
I had a ton of fun.
Good.
And I think it's a great start to the Carpenter Fest.
Perfect. Sure. And so it's not just nostalgia.
No.
Okay.
No.
That's what I like.
It's not. No, it's just, certain movies hold up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, it's just because something's timeless or evergreen. Something is a concept which it obviously seems like H.P. Lovecraft had a handle on.
Yeah.
Of these types of ways of looking at the human experience, right?
Well, and they refer to what he specifically was doing as cosmic terror, right? And it's that it's not just scary. It's not Michael Myers scary. It's not just scary because there's a guy with a knife
jump out and
who might jump out and try to kill you. But instead, it's like. The entire planet, everything that you know, could be coming apart at the seams. And the people, there was a whole cult of people who followed the monster Cthulhu. And their whole mantra was, we don't worship the great Cthulhu because he might save us when he wakes back up. he might just eat us first so that we don't suffer all the way that you guys are going to. So like that level of cosmic terror where you're like, no one's going to be okay.
Wow.
We're all going.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's hard to get your subtle. It's hard to get your fingers on though. Right. And be like, that's the scariest thing on the planet is like, oh, God exists. He just doesn't like you. Like that's, and I think that this movie again does a fantastic job of showing what that would be like to go through.
No, it was tons of great horror movie tropes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well. So, awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching this week.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Please write us at deepdivefilmschool@gmail.com and let us know what you're being for Halloween.
Yes.
Go to YouTube comments and check on that. You can find us on Twitter at DDF Podcast. DDFS podcast and Deep Dive Film School everywhere else. And yeah, so go to iTunes. We're still on there full time. Rate us, do all that stuff. We love that stuff. But thank you.
And next week, I think we're gonna get into. Next week we're gonna get into Starman.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, can't wait. That's gonna be good. What have you been up to lately?
Just working a lot.
Oh, didn't see you there.
I don't know. I want to hear about your day.
Oh, buddy. Let's both scoot. No, let's both scoot my way. Scoot my way.
This is all on
I know.
record right
Scoot
now.
Scoot my way. A little bit more.
Hey,
There we go.
fucking
Okay, that's good.
guys.